Number 3, how many miles did we go in 50 days? So I know I looked around the room a little bit at people's work. Things looked pretty good, hopefully at home too. We plug in our 50 for the days, and then we calculate that. So we get y equals 50 over 5 plus 87. 50 divided by 5 is 10. And 10 plus 87 gives me 97. So hopefully you did that. And again, we're going to write incomplete sentences. So in 50 days, there will be 97 miles completed. Any questions at all? Everyone do okay with that? All right, so let's see for number 4. Remember, it says 1 year, but we're not going to plug in 1 because our X represents days. So that's why we need to plug in 365. If it said 2 years, then we would figure out what 365 times 2 is and plug that in. All right, so we'll have y equals 1/5 times 365 plus 87. We can put that all over 1 and we multiply across. So we get 365 over 5 plus 87. Okay, again, some of you may have already done this. Otherwise, if you didn't, make sure you're copying along. And then we reduce that. 365 divided by 5, if you use your calculator, gives me 73. And then we add the 87 miles that are already completed. So 73 plus 87 gives me a grand total of 160. So in 1 year, there will be, 160 miles completed. Questions? Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, I'll leave that there for a moment. Remember, guys, this will always be posted. Okay, so the problems that we've do will be posted in the video. So if you skipped one or something, you can go back to copy. Okay. Let's all move now to that second page. And again, if you are behind, you can come back to copy that first page. So the second page, let's flip it over. Let's just first start by recalling our equation so we don't have to keep flipping back and forth. So we have y equals 1/5 x plus 87. So number 5 is exactly, I didn't even realize what I was saying before. We're going to continue with this same sort of method. How many miles will be completed in 2 years? So we're still looking for miles. So we don't know y, so we'll have y equals. But we need to know, what do I plug in for x? Am I just plugging in 2? Right, we need to multiply. So, So we'll remember there's, I don't know why that keeps popping up. We're going to multiply that we have 365 days in a year and we have 2 years. So 365 times 2 gives me 730. So that's what we want to plug in. That's how many days. Plus the 87 miles already completed. So we'll go across 730 all over 5 plus 87. That's 730 over 5. Remember, that means division. So we divide. 730 divided by 5 gives me 146. And we add the 87 miles already completed. And that gives us 233. And remember, that means miles. That's our distance. So in 2 years, 233 miles will be completed. Any questions, anybody? So if we recall, I'm just going to scroll for 1 second and I'll come back. Remember, the original problem says we're trying to get the total highway to be 267 miles, right? So in 2 years, we have 233 miles. So we still haven't completed it by the 2-year mark, just as an understanding of that. All right, let's use some complete sentences without numbers to explain what we did, okay? You probably haven't done this in a little while, but we used to do it all the time in our word problems here. Remember, I'm not going to say I multiplied 1/5. What I'm going to say is that we multiplied, but what does that 1/5 stand for? Can anyone tell me what 1/5 stands for?
X.
So it means, yes, but with words. Like what does the amount of miles we get done per day? Exactly. So for number 6, we're going to say I multiplied the amount of miles completed per day. Another way to say that is like the rate, right? But I multiplied the amount of miles completed per day. That's the 1/5. By, what do we then multiply by? Ashley?
The number of days.
The number of days, exactly, good. Right, that changed. That's our variable. And then after we multiplied each time, what did we do? Perfect, good, Mac. And then, so I multiplied the amount of miles completed per day by the number of days, and then added the amount of miles already completed. Good participation from a variety of folks. Good work. And very accurate. All right, so this next one, number 7, says how many days if 150 miles have been completed. So what are we going to be looking for? What variable now? X, good. So we're going to take that 150 and we're plugging it in for y. Instead of saying y equals 150 is my distance, that goes in for y. Then we'll have our 1/5 x. We don't know what x is. That's our days that we're looking for, plus the 87. Okay, and we were doing a lot of this sort of stuff at the end of last semester, right? Solving for x, getting our variable alone. So the first step here to do would be to subtract 87. We want to undo that. So 150 minus 87 gives me 63. And we still have equals 1/5 x. Now, how do I get rid of that 1/5 x? What do we use? What's that vocab word, Alex? Well, we multiply, good, by the reciprocal. Yes, very good. So we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of 1/5 is 5, or 5/1 if you prefer. So we'll do that to both sides, and 5 times 63 gives me x equals 315. Now, what does that 315 mean again? What are we looking for? How many days? Good. So it will take 315 days to complete 150 miles. Good work from a lot of people. Remember, anyone at home too, you can chime in. Or always use that chat if you just want to quietly participate. That's fine too. Any questions? All right, let's keep plugging through. So number 8 says how many days, so we're still going to look for X this time, does it take to complete the highway? So there's no numbers at all involved in this question. But recall, we actually do know that. How long is the entire highway supposed to be? What does it say at the very top of our scenario again? Good, 267. Good, people at home chiming in. So let's write that into that little line there. And so this problem will be just like number 7, but we had to remember 267 is what they're asking for. So we'll have 267 equals 1/5 X plus 87. Go ahead. Everybody try solving that one on your own. Let's see if we all get the same answer, okay? Go ahead. Give you guys a minute. And if you do know it and you want to put it into the private chat, go ahead and do so. That way I know you're participating, especially at home, people who are quiet. And Layla, that's good. Good, Alex. Nice, Dakota. Good, Dominic. Yep, Mac. Yes, good, Ashley. Good, Ben. Looks like people are doing a nice job. So we will subtract our 87. Good, Peyton. 267 minus 87 gives me 180. And then we multiply by that reciprocal of 5, and 5 times 180, like all of you in the chat have said, is 900. And then we just want to write that in a sentence. So it will take 900 days to complete the highway. If I said how many years is that, what would you do? Divide by 365. Yeah, good. All right. I'll keep scrolling. If you're still copying, I'm not going to completely move it, but why don't you guys try number 9? So number 9 says how many days until 50 miles are completed. So try that one and let's see what we get, and we'll analyze that one. Okay, so go ahead. And same deal, if you want to participate and put your answer into the chat, you can. And we'll give everyone a moment. Looks good, Layla. All right.
Yeah.
All right, let's see how we're doing because I'm only seeing a couple of people answer. So 50 miles is what we're plugging in for y, right? That's our distance. We don't know the time. So we're going to have 50 equals 1/5 x. We don't know that, plus 87. Just like with the previous problems, we're going to subtract 87 first. And when we do that, what do we get? We get a negative number, negative 37. And it's really important that we're okay with those negatives, right? When I have a smaller number minus a bigger number, you're going to get that negative answer. So I get negative 37 equals 1/5 x. Now to get x alone, we multiply by 5. And we get negative 185. So that's my x value. And yes, that's what x equals. But when I write my sentence, am I going to say it will take negative 185 days? No. What does that negative really represent?
Like it takes less than a day.
That's a good idea. That's a good guess. Remember, guys, how many miles already are completed as we currently stand? 87. So that 50 miles that we're talking about was already done in the past. And that's what that negative represents. That negative answer, we'll write a sentence in 1 second, but that negative represents the past and days ago. So what this means is that 185 days ago, there was 50 miles completed. So yes, when I do my chart in my data, will I put x as negative 185? But in terms of understanding the context, we don't want to say negative 185 days. A negative time means in the past. Okay, so it means the past tense. Does that make sense? Cool. Any questions? All right, so we just have like one more solving problem, complete sentence, and then we're going to talk about our chart. So number 10, let's just rewrite our equation so we have it, remember. So we're at the top of the third page here. So y equals 1/5 x plus, I keep forgetting, 87. So this question number 10 says, how many days before new construction began was the project started? Think about what that means. Before you begin the project, how much of the project is completed? So we're still looking for days, x. We need to put in something for our distance. So how many miles have been completed the day we start a project? 0, exactly. Nothing has been completed. So we're going to plug in 0 for my y value. Does that make sense? So when a project starts, nothing has been done. So we know 87 currently have been done. So we're trying to look back at, okay, well, how many days has it been since? So now we just solve like all the others. Subtract 87. We know it's going to be a negative number because 0 miles is certainly in the past. So negative 87 equals 1/5 x. Then we multiply by 5. Is it working out? So we get negative 435 equals x. So the project began 435 days ago. Or you could say there were 0 miles completed 435 days ago. How we doing? Good? Anyone at home have any questions? What's that? You understand? Good. All right. I'm actually going to have us skip 11 for one moment because I really want to make sure I don't rush through this chart and interval aspect. So let's skip 11 and we can come back to it. But that is going to be similarly how we answered a previous question without using numbers. We use our words, okay? So let's all jump down to 12. I want to make sure we have this correct. So for number 12, we're going to fill our tables in. What always goes in the first column? What variable? The independent, which is the X one, exactly. So X is going to go in that first column. That first column for X, us this time, represented time. And what were our units that we had in parentheses? Days, good. The second column will always represent Y. And we had said Y is the distance. And specifically, miles. Good. Now, am I super picky with the time and distance labels? Like if you had said amount completed up top for distance, that makes sense, but our units need to be specific, miles, right? We're not talking miles on this page and on the previous page, feet, okay? We want to be consistent there. All right, now for our expression. Remember that first column with X is always just going to be X for our expression. The second column is what comes after the Y equals part in my equation. And that part was 1/5 X plus 87. We don't want Y equals because Y equals is an equation. So we take the part after the equal sign, and that's the expression. Okay, so now we're going to fill in the chart. All these numbers are pieces that we already have calculated, right? So for 10 days, that's the first one. 10 days was way back at number 2. And we got how many miles? 89. Good. So I'm going to put an 89 in there. Our next one that we're filling in is for, can we make sure our mask is on, bud?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thank you. That we have 365 days. So let's find that one. That was question 4. And how many miles were completed? 160. Good. So we'll put 160 in there. Okay, so again, just scrolling back and forth from the data we've already calculated. Then we had when there were 0 miles. And you're going to give me that negative answer. What was that negative answer? Negative 435. So it's okay in my data to write negative 435. It's when in a sentence we want to say a go there. 267 miles was question 8. How many days was that? Question 8, we got 900. And then 150 miles was number 7. And that we got 315. Okay, so everybody make sure that everybody make sure, do you have a question or are you just saying that? Okay, sorry, I'm in the middle. Come back later. I'm in the middle of teaching and recording. Sorry, bud. But good to see you though. So make sure our chart is completed, guys, and it's accurate. Okay. Again, all those numbers are from the previous calculations that we made. Okay. Once we have this, we're going to fill out our bounds. This is what's different. So mainly everything has been kind of similar to what you've seen before, minus that negative saying days ago. Our bounds is going to be slightly different, okay? So let's make sure we're paying attention. Variable quantity, same deal as before. What comes first is our X and then our Y. So let's look at number 13. Our variable quantity for X, again, always first, we said is our time. And if you like to put those parenthesis parts, the units in, you can as well. And then our Y variable is our distance. And that was miles. Okay, please make sure we're always doing X first and then Y, just like with the chart before. Here's what's different. What did we always put for lower bounds before, everybody? Zeros. But let's actually look at our chart. If we look at number 12, what do we now have that exists? Negative numbers. So we're not going to pick 0. We're going to pick that smallest negative number. In this case, for my chart, negative 435 is that smallest number. So negative 435 is my lower bound. Let's stay with time, though. Let's stay with that column. What's the highest number in that column? 900. So that's still kind of the same, where we look for the highest number in our chart. But don't just assume 0 is my lower bound anymore, okay? Is that good for people at home too? All right, for distance, let's look at distance. Is there a negative number for that one? No. So if there's not a negative number, what are we going to use? 0. And even in this case, 0 is there, but if it wasn't, still choose 0, okay? So it's zeros unless we have negatives, then you pick the negative number. So we'll have 0, and the upper bound, the highest number in that column was 267. Okay? All right. Now, intervals. What did we used to do? Divide that upper bound by 20. Here's the difference. We're not starting at 0 anymore. So I need your focus here. I'm going to just do the work below. You can still do it in the margin if you have room, but I want to make sure we have enough space. You need to find the range. The range is the total distance from the lower to higher. I'm not starting at 0. I'm just going to show you this like on a number line. If this is 0 right here, I'm actually starting way over here at negative 435. And I'm going all the way to 900. You don't necessarily need to copy this right now. I'm just explaining it. So that total distance is not 900 units. The total distance is this whole part. How many units is that? So how many units to the, I'm going to use a color. So look at the screen right now. How many total units is in between negative 435 and 0? 435, exactly. And how many units are in between 0 and 900? 900. So how many total units is that altogether? We would add those together. And so what is 435 plus 900? 1,335, exactly. So we have a total of 1,335. That is going to be the total distance, which means that's the number I take and I divide that by the 20. So that you can totally copy. So does everyone understand how I'm not just doing 900 by 20? I'm finding that total distance from that lower bound to the higher bound. When I divide that, 1,335 divided by 20 gives me 66.75. Do we want to count by that number? We round, and which way do we always round for these? Up, good. So someone tell me one that you might choose. 70. Does that work? Sure. Did anyone pick anything else? 70 is good with me. Now for our y, do I have to do this elaborate process? No, we're starting at 0. So from 0 to 267 is 267 units. We don't have to add in the negative parts. So I'll take 267, divide that by 20. And that gives me 13.35. What's a good interval to count by there? 15 is nice, good. Any questions with that?